I was looking at Psalms. It is an amazing book. There are places where it disturbs you. There are places where it comforts you. There are places where it confronts you. And as we continue our journey through Psalms, we find out today a couple of things. First of all, Psalms is divided into 5 books. A lot of people say that, scholars of the Bible say that it simulates the 5 books of Moses. We don't know. But Psalm 1 through 41 deals with Yahweh and Elohim. Now, Yahweh is the personal name of God. I am who I am, and Yahweh, I say Yeshua HaMashiach, that is God the Messiah, Jesus Christ. And then it says 48 times Elohim. That's God the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Now, in Psalm 1 to 141, it gives us that. That's the first book of Psalms. And then Psalm chapter 42 to 72, that's the second chapter of Psalms. And it does not pronounce the personal name of God except 20 or 31 times and 188 times with Elohim. The third book is 73, Psalm 73 to Psalm 89. And that is the essence of what God says through Yahweh, and it's the book that has the least amount of mentions of Yahweh himself, with 43 times and 59 times with Elohim. Then the fourth book of Psalms is Psalm 90 to 106. This is fascinating because one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 91, is part of that. And that is actually a little bit higher. It mentions Yahweh 101 times, and it mentions Elohim 19 times. And then the final book of Psalms, which is Psalms book 5, is Psalm 107 to Psalm 150. Now, if you can imagine that, Psalm 150 is 176 verses. Psalm 107, of course, is the beginning of that, and Psalm 107:20 is where we have our famous verse, He sent His word and healed them and delivered them from their destruction. So those are the 5 books of Psalms. Now, we really don't know why they're divided that way, but they seem to be put in place that way. But last time we talked about Psalm 1. This time we're talking about Psalm chapter 2. And it says here, why do the nations rage? Now, this is a comment on what God is saying, and the psalmist takes his position and takes kind of a third-party position. Why do the nations rage, and why do the peoples plot in vain? They make their plans against God in vain. It says in verse 2, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord. So the entire earth comes against God. That is amazing. And they say against the Lord and against his anointed. So there is a separation, there is a delineation between people. There's God's anointed, then there's people who set their mind against God. Very interesting. And it says here, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. So this is the mention, the first 3 verses of what it is to live your life on this earth right now, is we've got to burst forth and do things God's way instead of our way all the time. And then in verse 4, I love this part because I always say, did you know that God laughs? It says, he who sits in the heavens laughs. Elohim laughs. The Lord looks, the Lord holds them in derision. He has put the people who are against him over here and said they are not going to succeed. And then he says, then he will speak to them in his wrath. Do you know, there's the wrath of man, there's the wrath of Satan, and then there's the wrath of God. They are different. I do not want to experience divine wrath. Anyway, he says, he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them with his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, on my holy hill. And I heard somebody the other day on radio blasting Zion. And that's interesting because, you've got to watch this here. Verse 7 says, I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Now it switches to all of a sudden he's talking about Jesus. And he says, verse 8, ask of me and I will make the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. This is God speaking through the Psalms. And so he says here, he seems to explain that the nations or the people of the earth have been given to Jesus Christ. Isn't that interesting in Psalm chapter 2? And the last three verses here, 10 to 12, it says, now therefore, O kings, be wise, kings of the earth. Be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Respect God, serve him with fear and rejoice with trembling. And then it says this, and this is something that's fascinating. Kiss the Son. Show affection to the Son. Kiss the Son, capital S-O-N, lest he be angry with you and perish in the way. For his wrath is quickly kindled. His wrath is quickly kindled. And then it says, blessed are all who take refuge in the Lord. Let me tell you something. Psalm 2 gives us the illustration of what it means to serve the Lord, what it means to serve Jesus Christ. Absolutely fascinating. And you don't see that when you just read through them quickly, but when you begin to pray that, you begin to see these positions in the psalm and how this works. So Psalm 2, which was written probably 1,000 years before Jesus was ever born, speaks and says, this is what I see. The earth should serve God, and there are those who do not, and those who are trying to find him. The Jesus Christ, the King, the Son, the Messiah, he has the inheritance of the earth. So all the kings of the earth should pay attention and kiss the Son. That's amazing. So that's Psalm 2. And Psalm 3 is going to be very interesting. So I just thought I'd share that with you today. Psalm 3 will be, let me tell you something, it's going to be great.